Hi, everyone. This is Nomiki Konst. You are watching The Nomiki Show. If you aren't already, please subscribe on our YouTube channel and become a patron because that is what keeps this show going. That's why we're able to do great content, deeper dive interviews. It keeps our producers paying their bills. Go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. And breaking news, this is super exciting. Our show is not even a month old, and we are planning to do a live show already for Super Tuesday. If you are in Los Angeles or can be in Los Angeles for Super Tuesday, that is the day of the California primary. We're going to be in downtown LA doing a live show with, are you ready for it? The one, the only, Michael Brooks. We have Nando Villa, Lucy Flores, Francesca Fiorentini, LA Charger, Justin Jackson, and David Diane, and of course myself, and Alona Minkowski. She's coming all the way from New York with Michael to do the show. It's going to be an amazing night. We're going to be doing live coverage all night. Tickets are just below in YouTube, bit.ly/LA Super Tuesday with a capital S and a capital T, LA Super Tues, excuse me, TUES. The link is below in the bio, or if you're listening on Patreon, it is going to be in the subject area. All right, so bed last night as of Thursday night, and my phone just started going off. People were texting me, did you see what happened with Emily's List? Did you see what happened with Emily's List? I feel like every few months there's a story about the institutional organization. It's a little over 30 years old, Emily's List. Don't know what Emily's List is? It stands for, Emily stands for Early Money is Like Yeast. It makes the dough rise. The intentions of Emily's List, at least in the beginning, were to help female candidates run for office by helping them raise money early, because when you're a candidate, you need that money early to help build the infrastructure so that you can succeed in the long term. Their goal was to elect more women, pro-choice women to Congress, to the Senate, and later across the country, Democratic pro-choice women. But, you know, I think I could say this. They've found themselves in a position where they're representing corporate interests. And just yesterday, there was a story that was highlighted on Twitter from a Bernie supporter showing a sample mailer of an attack ad against Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, basically saying that Bernie Sanders is just like Donald Trump. And this ad was highlighted by Women Vote, which is an Emily's List PAC. And Emily's List soon after responded saying, we were just testing that ad. That is not something that we decided to go with, which essentially meant that they were planning to go with an attack ad against Bernie Sanders as we approached the Nevada caucus. So next guest is Laura Moser. Laura Moser, you may recall, ran for Congress a couple years ago. And she has an incredible story about why she ran and the experience she had running for office in the primary, specifically with the Democratic institutions. Laura, thank you so much for joining the Nomiki Show.
Of course, so good to be here. And if anyone on Patreon wants to fly me to Los Angeles, I too will join the panel that I haven't been invited to be on. But you know what?
You can come. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Anyway,
we might need a bigger stage at that point.
Yes. All the cool kids are going to be there. So
I was like, it started with just a handful of people, and then everyone was like, I'm going to be in LA. I'm like, all right, cool. And then another person, I'm like, guys, this is crazy.
I mean, you need to get that energy out on Super Tuesday. You need to be doing something. So, you know, I was going to be knocking on doors here, but I can make myself available.
Yes, because you're in Texas, and Texas
I am in Texas, which is a big Super Tuesday state. Yes.
You ran for Congress in Texas.
I did.
What district? When did you run? Let's hear a little backstory here.
Sorry, just 1 second. I ran in the 7th Congressional District in 2018, and I was not someone who'd been involved in politics at all before, but I had started this organization called Daily Action in the wake of the 2016 election. And I got 300,000 people calling Congress every day through this text app, and I thought, hey, why not use this kind of grassroots savvy to flip Republican Hillary +1, I think it was, congressional district. So that was that was how it all began, and it ended in blood and tears. So
I feel you. So Laura is a mom, has her kids in the background who really want to be on camera.
I have one naked child who's about to get in trouble.
It's okay. See, this is what people don't understand. So, Laura, because it relates to this, you're also on the board of advisors of Matriarch, and
I am. Yeah.
we'll say that at the top, Matriarch is an organization that we're both involved in which it supports progressive working class female candidates who are running for Congress and running on a background of economic justice, not taking corporate money. The platform is, all of the candidates have been endorsed, have supported a truly progressive platform, intersectional platform. And it's an amazing group of women who are on the board of advisors, I think over 40 at this point across the country, who have are progressive leaders, whether they're elected, used to be in office, have run for office, union leaders, activists, organizers, celebrities in some cases. But we are all very committed to supporting working class, progressive female candidates who are most likely not able to get the institutional support that they need because they're not wealthy or don't have access to wealth, at least in those early moments. So when you ran, as you know, from personal experience, there's this whole thing where like you have to raise a certain amount of money to get the attention of the establishment, their endorsement or support. So that's one barrier, but it kind of went to a whole other level in your race. Did you ever have those initial meetings with like Emily's List or the DCCC?
I did. And, and because there were multiple, I think there were 7 people in my primary, 2 women. And yeah, I had those meetings. I was actually able, without having personal wealth or having a wealthy family, was able to raise quite a bit of money. So they didn't ignore me, which it turns out to have been a problem in the end.
Right. Well, because they see you as a threat, right? They're at some point, and there are different attacks. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, we've talked about this a bit on the show. They stage different levels of attacks at different moments. Like, first they ignore you, right? Then if you're trying to get on the ballot, they'll try to kick you off the ballot. If you don't have, the lawyers to support you or enough petition signatures or whatever it is to get on the ballot, they'll go after you for financial violations or potentially financial violations, or none. They'll just go after you because they want to tie you up in court. And then if you really have raised the amount of money, I feel like that's where they go for the real the jugular.
Well, and we do see it happening with the Sanders campaign right now on a presidential level. It's like, oh, we can just ignore this campaign until it becomes a real threat with, money and actual votes. So
you met with them, and what was that experience like?
I mean, I met with them pretty early, and my understanding, which was obviously wrong, was that, now the DCCC was just like raise money, raise money, raise money. That's all that matters, And with Emily's List, my understanding was that they would, sorry, my son is.
All good.
I'm sorry.
This is why people love us, because we're real humans.
Any screen time for a week. Anyway. So I am actually I'm doing a show, Leo. I'm doing a show. Okay. But so I'm having trouble focusing. So you're
doing great.
Okay. Yeah. But I just I knew that the other candidate in my race came from a very wealthy background and had very wealthy backers and was sort of the kind of candidate that unfortunately Democrats seek in the current party. But then they did endorse, and then they ended up spending like $300,000 against me.
So Emily's List, which supposedly does not
pro-choice women, yeah.
When there's more than one in a race, they are not supposed to endorse, but then they did.
But yeah, I think they do in general. But yes, which is their right to. But they did spend a tremendous amount of money defeating me. And when you're raising money on Twitter, like that's great, and that money. We made every dollar count, but then if some big PAC is writing $300,000 checks and sending 10 mailers, that's really hard to compete with.
So what does that mean when Emily's List goes after you, a progressive pro-choice woman running for the Democratic slot? I mean, that's crazy to me. You guys might remember when this story came out. It was getting a lot of attention and how a lot of people learned about you. But what did it mean when they went after you in mailers?
Well, it means that they're not about progressive pro-choice women, that there's something else happening that they care about more. And that's not, people who are paying attention have known that about Emily's List for a while. It hasn't, I actually the only time I'd ever really done anything political, I went to an Emily's List luncheon in 1992 when I was like 14. and it was like the year of the woman, and Carol Moseley Braun was the speaker, and it was amazing. And Ted Danson was there, and I have this like picture of me wearing my mother's shoulder pads meeting Ted Danson. It was like this big event in my life. And I really thought, wow, electing women, that's what this is all about. And it turns out that it's, they have a specific profile, and it is not just being female and pro-choice.
Yeah. And not just being white either. Because I think
they like the white ladies.
They like the white ladies. They definitely like to raise money and give money to the white ladies. Sometimes they endorse people because they need to have cover, right? It's sort of the way that Bloomberg likes to give out climate change money, or any billionaire. They choose, pick and choose some candidates, but at the end of the day, they're not really giving them the financial resources or the tools to win, or may not even be invested in winning. Because
well, and it's also the thing I think so great about Matriarch is just like now for all of these things, the only way you can get an endorsement from one of these big organizations is if you've already proven yourself viable through fundraising, whereas early money is like used to supposed to be like, we're going to help you if you don't. I just hosted an event for a candidate who comes from a military background and does not come from a wealthy family and is against someone who has a lot of wealth. And this is the type of candidate that Emily's List should love to support, because she's got this great profile. She's running against Dan Crenshaw, who's one of the worst members of Congress. But it's like, unless you can enter the, race with a big war chest, then they're not really interested. And that's like a real problem because I said, oh, call time sucks. And her finance person said, oh yeah, she has to do like more than anyone because she doesn't know anyone who's rich. So every relationship that she's building from scratch. And that's what I think is so great about Matriarch, that they really are, trying to help women who don't have those connections establish them. Because unfortunately it matters.
Yeah, it's really, I'll say from my experience being on the board of Matriarch, working with the candidates closely and the team of Matriarch working closely with the campaign managers, the candidates will reach out and say, do you know somebody who has access to XYZ? Do you know somebody who can give advice on how to pick a mail firm, which, to purchase mailers? Or do you know a good field director? Do you know how to use this program Reach? And it's become a great resource because there's this board of advisors that has tremendous talent and experience, and in some cases, the candidates will have mentors with the board of advisors, and that doesn't exist with other organizations. It's kind of amazing. What we've seen is this is a primarily volunteer-driven organization, Matriarch, and we're offering more support than these huge organizations that have that are literally like they are multi-million-dollar operations and have several arms that are taking huge corporate checks. And it's like, at the end of the day, in some cases, yeah, they get on the ground and they help the candidates out. But how many? How often is that happening? And really, the win record is not up there. And so our whole take on Matriarch and what we originally talked about with Matriarch was, we think that you can elect more women and reach parity in Congress, which is something that we've been fighting for so long, when you invest in women who do come from working class backgrounds and fight for progressive issues, because they relate to more people. But when you only support rich ladies, that's not very reflective of the country.
Right.
So they ended up doing opposition research on you, right?
Yes, that was the DCCC, and which is kind of a revolving door with Emily's List at this point. They're kind of a lot of the same staffers come and go. But yes, no, that was definitely the DCCC. But I'll hold my own theories on where that all came from until a later date. But yeah.
But as a candidate, what does that do to you? Because this happened at what point in your campaign?
Well, the Emily's List endorsed pretty fair, in like November, but then they didn't actually start pouring lots.
You mean November of the prior year?
Yeah. So like the primary was about when it is this year, like about when Super Tuesday is. So, but they hadn't put any resources in. But then right when early voting started, they started pouring tremendous financial resources. And, it's like nothing's fair in politics. So I can't complain about, although they posted the DCCC did some very misleading, lying, and false stories about me all over the internet. It's just really hard because you're fighting, especially in a smaller race, you're fighting for every vote. Like I was up every morning, like knocking on every door, and all of that stuff really you can't really compete. Like when someone is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, getting on TV, doing all of these things. So I've become, people ask me if for office, like I'm this woman, this is my story, or not even a woman, but I've become quite cynical about what it takes to win. It's not having the best ideas. It's not working the hardest. It's it's a machine. And we're seeing it happen, and the machine, I hope the machine has a lot of power, but as we're seeing, I know you're going to get to the real story, but 2 times in the past week, we have seen like individuals on the internet using their social media power to attack the power of one of the richest people who's trying to buy the presidency. So I find that like really inspiring, like the Benjamin Dixon release.
Amazing.
I mean, he just found it while he was watching the speech on YouTube, and the next day there was a New York Times article. Like there's not that much power to the people happening anymore, but I was really inspired by that. So like hats off to Ben. That was really cool.
And if you haven't heard his interview, he was interviewed today on the Majority Report on Friday. If you get a chance to go on, I give a plug to my other side gig is once a week on the Majority Report, but it was a great interview, very powerful interview. I'm
just like, that restored some of the faith that I have lost in the process.
Yeah.
And I hope, and they keep it coming,
But this is also why solidarity matters. And I think, when women, when they run, statistically, they are attacked more and smeared more than men. Progressive men, non-progressive men, just in general, there's a standard. And I'm not talking about just like sexist attacks. I'm talking about like actual strategic smears, devaluing them, trying to minimize their expertise, their backgrounds, because when you're running as a woman, you're not only, you are not only have more obstacles for many, many reasons, not just gender issues, but financial issues, if you're a mother, there's just a whole set of issues, and this is why matriarch's important. But on top of it, and
there's a likability threshold, whatever that means,
right,
that does not exist for anyone who
exactly. There's a likability threshold, and then there's also they want to delegitimize you. So if they can find a way to say, like in your case, if I'm okay with saying this, they were trying to say that you're not really from the district. They did that in my race too, and I was like, I've been living. This is New York City. If you're not from,
with mine, there was also some very anti-Semitic strains about like, I'm not really American. I'm not really from here. And yes, I was gone for many years. Attack me on that, but don't say that I'm not from here. Don't say that I'm not American. So so there's lots of bad things happening in my house.
It's all good. We're good.
Yeah.
Let them I'll let the kids take care of themselves for
just another challenge.
5 more minutes.
Phase.
So Laura, because we've had these conversations in the past, and let's talk a little bit about why these organizations are acting this way. We saw that Bloomberg has given money to Emily's List. Let's talk a little bit like the infrastructure. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I find it super alarming. I think Bloomberg gave them $2 million in the last cycle, which for him, that's like me buying a cappuccino. Like that's the percentage of his net worth, or less. No, me buying, I don't know. But like, it's really upsetting. And the fact that they would even consider attacking the Democratic frontrunner, who has been pro-choice before it was even a thing, who has like 100% rating from every pro-choice organization, just because he's not like in the same billionaire club as unfortunately a lot of these establishment Democratic organizations are, that they would. Donald Trump wants to throw women in prison for having an abortion. An acute threat to like the freedom of every single woman in this country, and to compare him to Bernie Sanders because someone's writing them a check. Like, I don't think they would do that if the money weren't involved. Right. And it's sad. And again, like matriarch plug, it's why we need organizations that aren't in it for the money. And it's not just Emily's List. It's everything. Politics in this country is corrupted at every level by money, and it's getting worse. And we're watching someone actually buy his way into the nomination. I don't think it'll happen, but like the fact that it's, the mayor of Houston endorsed Bloomberg yesterday. It's like everywhere you look, someone who should not be endorsing this man is endorsing him because money talks, and it's very powerful. And I think again, and I think, I mean, I'm not sure if this is true, but I think that this Emily's List ad, they're saying, oh no, we hadn't approved this as a real thing. You know, of course, we know nothing. Like, I think it was leaked by someone in the organization who wasn't okay with it, and that's great. And so again, that gives me some faith that individuals with consciences will like beat the system, or at least give it a good drubbing. But otherwise, it's, who are the good guys, you know?
I mean, that's actually a really interesting point I've noticed in the last couple of days, is people that were actively smearing Bernie like 2 weeks ago are now realizing that they will support Bernie over Bloomberg because, number one, Bloomberg's a Republican. Number two, his record is abysmal, and I think there's just this, you know,
40 sexual harassment lawsuits,
right?
Or no, 64 lawsuits by 40.
Lawsuits.
And he says like nice tits when he passes a woman, like, just because that is not a person that any feminist organization should be taking money from, but he's got so much of it. So
much of it. Right. And it's revealing the transactional nature of politics. Like when a mayor can openly endorse Michael Bloomberg, they're basically putting a stamp on themselves. It's different than like behind the scenes lobbyist money, you know. It's egregious and it's right in your face. And you know, and what it also is showing us is that first off, he's very similar to Trump. I mean, the sexual harassment lawsuits are, you know, you're campaigning against Trump for 4 years and you're saying all these things about Trump, and then Michael Bloomberg comes in. That's my door.
I'm glad there's a sound coming from somewhere other than mine.
I was like, here we are. We're trying to get this interview in. It's just not happening. But thank you, viewers, for understanding that we're real human beings.
We had a really nice chat before the interview that had no interruptions, but, you know, such is life. Right.
Exactly. It's Friday night. What do you expect? But at the end of the day, I think what's going to end up happening is the process. You know, in 2016, we had WikiLeaks, which revealed like what was happening behind the scenes, and they could paint it on Russia. They could do, you know, blame it on Trump. But this time around, they're doing it to themselves, and the process is being revealed. And even the most partisan, like, you know, top-down, rank-and-file Democrats realize that this smells too much. And
do you really think so?
I think there's a lot of, I mean, we're seeing loyal, not all of them, but there are people who, not the Neera Tandons of the world, but, you know.
That's never going to happen, yeah.
That's never going to happen. Well, probably because she's close to Bernie, or to Bloomberg's advisors. But, you know, there are people who, I was really surprised, like Matt Iglesias. I mean, he's not that rank and file, but there are people who are saying, quietly at least, that they're going to support Bernie Sanders over Michael Bloomberg. I think especially New Yorkers who weren't part of the Bloomberg machine, who fought against Bloomberg for a long time. But the other side of it, you know, just to go back to the organizational aspect before we wrap up, these organizations are top down. And whether it's a union going against the union members, the leadership,
right,
or Emily's List, and you know, clearly somebody leaked something at the, you know, within Emily's List, and we saw with the DNC, a lot of people left the DNC or stood up to the DNC right after the election because they were being good soldiers. But you know, we see it with Donald Trump. I think we have to start looking at our movement as a progressive movement as being a little, you know, it's what's so powerful about DSA. But when you have a top-down organization, it's easier to corrupt.
Right.
Money. Right.
And I guess, I mean, maybe everything becomes corrupt if it sticks around long enough. But I've been upset since Iowa about like what's happening, what will be allowed to happen. And I think so again, I felt for however horrible it is that a Democratic organization that purports to support choice would equate Bernie Sanders with Donald Trump. I feel like hopeful that there are enough, you know, good people out there who actually want the right thing for our country. And that, I'm not saying that's Bernie Sanders. Like, I'm saying that it's like to let democracy play out before we descend into a complete plutocracy, or, you know, whatever is happening in our country right now, that we actually allow our, you know, our democracy is already kind of messed up to begin with, but let's not make it more so by allowing people to buy their way into organizations and to buy endorsements, and, you know, so. And
it's the death of the, I mean, we joke about the two-party system, but this is the actual death of the two-party system, and the replacement is what, oligarchs, plutocracy, like that.
No, that's right.
The Democratic Party dies, then the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean the GOP is actually, there's a great Osita in the New Republic. He wrote an article about how the GOP, the Republican Party, has to die for, and I don't want the Democratic Party to go. I'm like a Democrat, or I was until my up close experience with it. But like, we have to have something like to save our. There's like so many people hurting in this country right now, and like whatever you think of Medicare for all, or fracking, like Bernie Sanders is not the greatest threat to women right now, period. So
Medicare for all, just as a tie-in, care about reproductive rights and reproductive justice. Right. It's ridiculous that you wouldn't be supporting Medicare for all if that's your issue.
But you don't even have to support Medicare for all, and you don't have to support Bernie Sanders to know that he's not the worst thing that's happening to women in this country. Actually, Donald Trump is, and I think Michael Bloomberg's not that, I don't know who he would appoint to the Supreme Court. I don't know that those justices would be that much better.
Sheryl Sandberg. That's probably...
Right.
Like, I'm just going to lean into the Supreme Court, John Roberts. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Larry Summers told me this is how you talk to other men. Right. You just lean in. Laura, I love you. I want you to run for office again.
I will never run for office again. But I want to keep supporting good people who are, like Mike Siegel running in Texas 10. There's lots of good people running for office, and I'm so, God bless them all. Just not going to be among their ranks again.
Well, at least you haven't given up on the fight. So thank you, Laura. I appreciate it.
Thank
you.
If
you're not already subscribing to the channel, go to YouTube and subscribe to The Nomiki Show and patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. Laura Moser, you're amazing. Come back soon. Talk about other things.
I'm sorry. I got really thrown by the...
Why are you apologizing? A man would just be like, suck it up.
A man would not be
confident man.
A man would not be watching two children in the middle of a work day. So
there you go.
No, that's not true. Not all, not all men, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. Statistically speaking.
The juggle doesn't always work, but I appreciate it. And I'm excited, and I'm excited to continue working with Matriarch to help elect working class, pro-choice, progressive women.
Same here.
Someone's got to do it.
Cool crew.
Yeah. All right.
Come to LA for Super Tuesday.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.